everyone. I'm going to speak in English. I hope that's okay. I can kind of understand French, so if you have questions, you can try ask me in French, and I'll try see. Yeah, so hi, I'm Robyn. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for organizing this. I really appreciate it. So right now, like, I'm traveling Europe for work, and it's really nice. I do a lot of talks in South Africa, but obviously no one here knows who I am. So it's very cool traveling and then actually doing talks, because I get to meet a lot of people, and then maybe it's kind of selfish, but people get to understand what I'm interested in and what I do and what my company does as well. And it makes really good connections. Whereas if I go to events, I'm quite shy as well. So it's quite hard to meet people. So I'm very happy to be here. So I'm going to just tell you my story and how my company started and what my background is, and then also all sorts of things that we do. So here you go, the content. So I am Robyn. I actually started by studying something called sonic arts, which is basically the physics of audio, how audio works. And then, oh, also please tell me if you don't understand any words or if you need me to speak slowly. Yeah, so, and also if you have any questions, just feel free to like butt in. So sonic arts is like the physics of audio, how audio works, and then how to change certain things about the sound waves in it. And what I started doing with that is, so essentially sound waves can be broken down into numbers. When you use hardware, you can basically take the data from the sound waves and manipulate actuators, or you can take data picked up from sensors and then manipulate the audio. So I used to create interactive audio installations like that. So I'm going to show you a few. Please do excuse the videos. They were like the prototype videos, and they are very cheesy. It was when iMovie first came out, you'll see. So that was one of the first audio installations that I did. What happens a lot of the time is when you've been working on something for so long, you forget to document it properly. So someone luckily had filmed that. Here's another one that I did. Oh, so basically it's pretty obvious. They're church bells, but you're pulling helium balloons. So I've done that quite a few times for exhibitions at galleries where we fill a whole room with balloons, and it looks like they're just sitting on the ceiling, and then they're giant ones that you can pull and play with. So it's a lot of fun. This is another one. So it's quite hard to hear with the speakers, but what happens is basically it's an umbrella that's closed. As it's slowly opening, it gets louder and louder and louder, or it's raining more. And then when you put it over your head, it slowly is like it's raining on the umbrella. And this was done for a space where there were speakers at ear level and then speakers just above your head. So when you moved it, the sound actually moved above your head as well. So you heard the rain here, and then you heard the rain above you. So this was just stuff that I loved building, creating, and then galleries would ask me to produce things for them, which was really cool. But as one of the curators said, we can't sell any of your art. It's an experience. It's not a product, which kind of affected me for a while. I was like, I love doing this. I don't necessarily want to build a product, because art to me is like, I don't know, an extension of who you are. So I had started, does anyone know what an Arduino is? Okay, cool. So an Arduino is, I'll show you a picture of it later, but an Arduino is a little microcontroller where you can connect sensors and actuators, and you can build things like, oh wait, do you know what a Raspberry Pi is? Okay, so the Raspberry Pi is like, I want to say the big brother of the Arduino, but the Arduino came first. So the Raspberry Pi is a computer, and you can plug a screen into it and connect sensors. The Arduino, you have to plug this into a computer to run it. It doesn't run by itself, but it's the same thing. You connect stuff to it, you can make robots, you can interact with your environment and pick up data. So I started an Arduino group because all my art installations were around that, and the Raspberry Pi hadn't come out yet. So the group grew and grew and grew, and I was working as a web developer in an advertising agency, and I left because I just couldn't see myself staying there. And people kept saying, from the group, can you please build this for our company? Can you do that? And then I was like, well, I've got the time. I can bring it on. And then a incubator asked to basically sponsor me, but I needed to come up with a name. So my company, KATO, formed. So KATO stands for Kick-Ass Technology, obviously, which is quite a cool name. Yeah, so it's grown since then. It started in 2013, and we did a lot of interactive art installations for digital agencies. So things like if you tweeted, a billboard would flip and you'd see like a new car by Volkswagen, or like interactive, maybe this person's coming in. Hello, bonjour. Sorry, I'm talking in English. I hope it's okay. Yeah, so we did a lot of that. I got pretty bored doing that. It's very hard working with digital agencies because their deadline's in like 2 weeks, and in order to do anything with hardware, you need a minimum of like 6 to 12 weeks. In South Africa, you need 12 weeks because we have to ship everything in. It gets, so just so you know, I'm from South Africa in case I forgot to say that. Everything gets kept in, like at the borders until you pay an import fee. So it's very hard to import electronics in South Africa too. So the company we started doing more actual prototypes for different industries, from insurance industries to agriculture to healthcare. And the community alongside that kept growing. So this is basically now how the KATO Cycle works. So we have the community, and we also educate people. So we do workshops, events, we have meetups, we do mentorship. And then basically we present them with problems that need to be solved. So we will say, like, we do open challenges online on our website where we'll get clients to tell us, like, what is their issue, what should we be facing, and then we have an open challenge where the public will basically say, well, electricity is a huge issue for us, like in our household, or water is a big issue, or maybe transportation, and then they submit that, and they can submit a solution with it as well. And then we end it with a 48-hour hackathon. So the idea is that you've been building it up until then, and then you have these 48 hours to work on it if you want, or you can arrive and pitch it. So it ends with you pitching it, which basically then ends up that you've developed a company or you've developed a product, which is your solution. It doesn't have to be hardware. It can be absolutely anything from, maybe it's just a website. Maybe, so a lot of people don't have smartphones or access to the internet, so you might actually need to do something. We call them USSDs. It's when you SMS like hashtag star and then you get an answer. So like in South Africa and most of Africa, Wikipedia and Google Maps works like that. You can use it on your smartphone if you have data or there's access to data. So the product development is anything. Then from there, they're companies, they're formed, and essentially we get investors in them and we take them off to different places to do acceleration programs and incubation. So we partner with people doing that. We partner with people from the education side. We then get clients and sponsors from the problem-solving side, and then the investors come in, and then these companies form, and we help them like go to market. So this is also what our company culture is about. It's the tech that we develop isn't necessarily something, for example, there's a really good hardware accelerator in Shenzhen, well, they started there, called Hacks. They'll invest in anything from a printer for the back of a phone, which isn't something that we're particularly, unless you need to take pictures and print them for some reason that's actually going to change the world. It's not something we'd be so interested in. And we're trying to take what's going on in Africa global, because we're so disconnected, it's very hard for us to know what's going on the other side of the world, or what you get is a lot of replication. So there are a lot of like music streaming companies that have started because you might not get like Afrikaans or Xhosa on, so those are languages. You might not get that on Spotify. So they'll create their own thing, but they can only target a very specific market. So we're trying to get people more connected so that the solutions that they create are a lot more global. Also inclusivity, females, transgender, different religions, different cultures, different like backgrounds completely, because in South Africa it's quite a big thing, especially Cape Town. There's a huge division between pay gaps, where people live, what their religions are. So this is essentially, we're very much like, this is an inclusive place, and we go out of our way to make sure people from different communities are there. So it's not just that if someone does come, they feel welcome, they actually are invited. Educating people, everything we do is open source. So obviously, being open source does mean that you can have a model where certain aspects are closed. So maybe you can have the way you've built your product open source so that the community can add to that, or your code can be open source, but the way your product's put together, you've got an IP that then is the thing you're making money off. And then the staff and everyone in the community, our thing is very much be the mentor you wish you had. Thank you. So we work in the two different divisions. It's the tech consulting, product development, and then the communities and events. But as you saw from the little cycle, they all essentially come together. They used to be very separate. So when we do the tech consulting and product development, we get to know the client, what exactly, so we do tech consulting basically, like how is your company running, what's going on, okay, what issues do you have, or maybe what issues do you not have that you could be facing, or how do we make your company thrive for the future, or even like products that can last longer. So for example, like Mercedes trying to not invest so much in cars and also look at different products that they can be building. So stuff like that. Then we build a map and a timeline with the client, and then also look at how we can make things more cost effective for them. And then we do the research and development. So we offer them 3 ways that they can do this. It's that they can either do it that we, as KATO, we create a solution for them, or we train their staff in-house so that they essentially have their own innovative tech community that can constantly be solving problems. Or our top answer is they outsource to our community, and we put these events and the challenges online together. And then once that's happened, we take the product, we test it, and then we take it to market. So that's how that works. So for example, one of our clients works in game reserves. So rhino poaching is a very bad thing, where people take the horns, and they, it's very sad. There are less and less rhinos in the world, and soon to be extinct if this keeps up. So we worked with a company, and we developed a drone. So in this case, we will also contract people who are experts in their field. So this would be like animal tracking, to find out where the human is that's threatened the animal, as well as where the rhino is, so we can track that. And then we've worked with an insurance company. So this one, for example, was an in-house project that we did. Then this one is we did with the community, and we had a hackathon. And so our insurance company said safety is a big issue for us because stuff gets stolen. And then it obviously costs from our side, or people get attacked, and then that's also costing us. So we brought, I think it was like 200 people together. So it's not a lot, but it was during a weekday. And we basically had like 48 hours. They didn't want to do the whole challenge process that we do. They had limited time. So in 48 hours, we brought a whole bunch of people together. And then this is actually a picture of the second and the third place. So the second place, they were a bunch of females, and they said they always, rape's a big problem where they stay. So they wanted to create a solution for rape. And then the guys, I'm forgetting what the third place did, but basically the insurance company invested in both of them, and they made their project come together. They said, we'll only invest in you guys if you work together. So that was very cool. The other company is now, the one that won, they do insurance for retail. So basically tracking how many items are in the shop, and they're currently going through the whole acceleration process, which is very cool. Here's a video from one of our hackathons. If it plays. There we go.
I'm Henk van Jasveld. I'm from Where's My Transport. We tried to do the Morocco challenge, and we kind of looked at the whole taxi problem that they have there and try to create a lift sharing system where you could basically advertise free seats into these taxis.
I thought this was actually very well put together. I like the focus of it. You know, the mobility has become an issue that people want to really address, and it's a good thing that it is a focus now, especially around the informal market.
The starting point was kind of to come up, well, we went with like a ride sharing app, and then we were working from that, trying to come up with an identity. When you only have 48 hours, it's quite tricky to kind of find something that everyone agrees on. And, you know, there is an idea going forward, which we'll see.
It was a really fun experience. It was really, really nice to see everyone coming together at the venue and seeing everyone working together, collaborating, coming up with ideas. I would absolutely do it again and recommend it, and I'm really looking forward to doing another hackathon and trying to hack transport.
So this was, Ford was doing the Morocco challenge, where there's a huge transportation issue in Morocco. So we were approached by DevPost in New York and asked if we would run a version in Cape Town for them. So we put that together. A few of the people said we actually would rather work on our own transportation issues. So this challenge ran for a few months, but this was the actual hackathon where people came together. So some people don't do the whole challenge for that whole period of time. They'll literally just do it for the hackathon. So that's just an example of what it's like being someone who's attended this. So these are the different communities. This is Arduino Cape Town, the first one that was started. Arduino has tried to make us use their logo, but they don't give us any sponsorship. They won't even send us t-shirts, so we refuse. So we're still using, so this is the mountain in Cape Town. It was in that video. So this is what one of the guys has built. He's built a drone completely from scratch, where he's built the boards in his sink, his kitchen sink, and then he's flying it with a glove, which has flex sensors on. The really cool thing about, besides that the whole thing's completely built from scratch, is he's never flown a drone before. He was just like, oh, I'll just build one. So it's very cool when you see people in the community like having these dreams and then they build stuff like that. This is another one. Everyone builds a 3D printer from scratch, but this one's really cool because he didn't want to look at the process online. He basically was like, how would I assume a 3D printer works? So it works quite differently. That he's got these two bars that basically like go over each other, and it works, I guess, quite similar to maybe like how a CNC machine works. But it's really cool to see that. Then we have our other group. So this group is very electronics based, which makes it extremely white male orientated in Cape Town, which is really sad. So we created this group, which basically brings people together that are more creative, and essentially it's a maker community. Does everyone know what a maker community is? So basically we try to join people from all different backgrounds that maybe their interest is like, I like to skateboard or surf, or I'm an artist, I'm a graphic designer, I do jewelry making or costume design, and we're like, great, let's incorporate tech into that now. So let's maybe track the speed of your skateboard, or like if you're on a boat or supping, we can track certain things, and we'll basically get people to think outside the box. And the great thing is, obviously everyone knows collaboration is really good because someone thinks differently to you, but a lot of the very technical minded people, when they've studied it or they're working in the industry, they don't necessarily have fun anymore. So it's quite a nice break for them, and they end up creating things that for them are extremely inspiring and actually useful. And then it's the same for people in the creative world. They're creating an actual product that can end up being used. So this is quite cool. This is like an interactive light display. It's actually Evil Mad Scientist from America. It's like a kit, but one of the guys in our group is obsessed with LEDs, so everything's just lights everywhere. It's very cool. Another guy, he's about 19 years old, but when he was like 17, he started making everything electric. So he has an electric bike. This is an electric car. It's very cool. When he did this demo for us, he forgot to plug it in afterwards, and he couldn't get home. He had to get a taxi. So it was extremely entertaining. And then so that group was still male orientated. It wasn't so much like white males anymore, but I was the only female that was going to the Modern Alchemist and the Arduino Cape Town meetups. But we still, so we didn't have the females. So then this group was formed. This group actually, it was quite weird. It started because I have a lot of people come to me and say like, oh, I'm thinking about starting like a coding group. And then I'm like, yeah, but it's started already. Just join another one. Because everyone's there, like all these coding initiatives, educate, which is great. But I kept getting this, and a lot of females wanting to do that. They were like, I really want to educate people in code. I think it's a great thing. And I'm like, yeah, but have you not met this person? And so this group was more started because there was this huge, like, miscommunication between people, or like lack of communication. And I then realized the females don't attend any events, let alone talk at any of them, yet I know all these people. So I was like, guys, let's just have like drinks at this one bar. I'll get a speaker. And I thought there would be like 10 people there. It ended up being, so the venue took 300 people. We shoved 400 people in, and we had about 700 that tried to sign up. It was insane. So essentially the Women in Tech group formed, which is great. Men always come to the events for Women in Tech as well. We also now attach Women in Tech to anything that we're doing, because we notice if we don't, females don't feel secure enough to actually attend the event for some reason. I think they just know someone from the community will be there. Because in the past they'd arrive and they'd be like, I'm the only girl, I'm leaving, and then just leave. So it's very interesting to have seen how that's like adapted and grown. Hang on, I told you this would happen. Okay, hang on. Yeah, so that was, it's very cool. We do a lot of mentorship, we do a lot of empowerment, where we get people in the community to get up and talk and present the stuff that they're doing. Because research has also shown that girls, so this is also interesting. It's not necessarily that it's females in tech or females in STEM. It's a female trait that when someone comes up and says, oh, I'm looking for a speaker in whatever your topic is, a girl will go, oh, no, but I know this guy that does it really well. And a girl doesn't necessarily go like, I'll totally take that on and do it. Because apparently girls suffer from imposter syndrome more than men. So this is when you feel like you shouldn't really be where you are, you don't deserve what you deserve, and girls also apparently don't ask for raises as much as they should. They will like build up their portfolio to a certain extent to actually go while it's validated that they deserve the money they think they deserve. Whereas a guy will be like, I need money. Like, I'm good at what I do, I work hard. So this isn't just a tech thing, it's an all-round female thing. So we work on the whole empowerment, getting females to stand up there and talk. It's just anything, like we'll have an event where everyone's, we'll put people in different groups, in different industries. So we realize that tech is quite a broad term. So we work with scientists, like biologists, everything like coders, engineers, and then a lot of females that work in the marketing industry, and they're trying to get into tech. So we'll like split them up into different groups. They have to solve different problems, and then someone has to present it. So initially, no one ever wanted to present their stuff, and now it's got up that a lot of the community's getting up and talking. So yeah, this is pictures from some of the events. These are some 16-year-old girls. So we partner with a coding initiative where they teach young girls how to code. And it's really cool. They've got nice sponsors, so it's all paid for. So this is another thing from our event, if it plays. There we go. This was the first event I was talking about. You'll see it's quite full.
So they're teaching us women how to code and empowering us to be great using what we can, our fingers.
I'm from Project Codex. We learn all the skills that come into software development.
We learned different languages, which are the coding languages, which are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. We'll make websites and blogs.
We love coding. I mean, even though it's extremely difficult, we just love it. I feel like we can really change the world if we put our heads into the right direction.
It teaches you computational thinking, algorithmical thinking, and it teaches you to become a software developer.
I got to learn how to wrangle data and use this data to create stories to solve problems that are currently happening in the world. Through coding we can do this, and I find it extremely fun.
There should be a sort of synergy between people, not women or men, and by building things together, everyone in tech, kids, old people, learners.
I think the role of women in tech is to empower young other women to join the industry. It's about solving problems, thinking creatively, and doing other amazing, crazy stuff that can change our world.
Tonight, I saw how many actual women there are in tech, and that was just amazing. Max, her talk was super inspiring. I just loved it so much. I want to be an entrepreneur, and tonight I'm going to start, like she said, in RD.
So those are the young students. Well, the one girl's a bit older, and she's on a different course, but those are the young girls. They've done really cool things. So water's a big issue in Cape Town at the moment. We have a huge drought. So they actually developed a water tracking app, two of those girls that are there. We also do a thing called Tech Talk. So this is quite common everywhere in the world, where we take a tech word that's like a fad at the moment that people will be throwing around, like blockchain, and they might not necessarily know exactly what it's about. So we get an expert in to talk about it. These were ones that were at the beginning of last year, I think, and they were talking about VR. But we actually got them to do like the future of VR, so designing houses, designing boats, how that will actually work. And then like the future of marketing as well, like how it's going to work versus how it's working now with AR. So this is what this event looks like. This is so the other events are very hands-on where it's workshop. This is just like sit, talk and listen kind of thing, where we get an expert in the field to stand there. They speak for generally like 10 to 20 minutes. They make the topic extremely approachable. So we make sure they don't use any jargon, or if they do, they start with by explaining like 1 + 1 is 2, and then they move from there. So for the people that attend our other groups, it's pretty boring because they know most of the stuff. It's stuff that you read in like magazines, but it's great because people that tend to go to like restaurants or like wine groups or wine clubs, this is like another event for them to go to, and essentially it's another entry for us to teach people and get them into tech, which is great. Here's some more pictures from the Women in Tech group. I actually wanted to talk about this because there's quite a big difference between women in tech here to what, not here, in South Africa, to what we read from around the world. So I was recently putting a proposal together to get us funding for our Women in Tech group, and I needed to give, this is like what our impact is compared to like what it's been before, but there's no data out there at all. There's no data about how many females are working in the tech or STEM industry. There's no data about how many females are studying it, how many females have dropped out. So it's really interesting, like every time you hear someone quoting, oh, the 20% of the tech industry is females, they've generally taken it from Europe or America, yet they're using it for South Africa. And so the females are very different that we're dealing with, because there are 11 different languages in South Africa, which means you've got 11 different cultures. So when you're just basically dealing with, you're dealing with females, trying to get them more into this industry and feel comfortable, but you're basing it off how American females feel, it's not particularly useful. So this is data that we're now starting to collect. I do not remember what this video is, sorry. Oh, this is another Women in Tech event that we had for Valentine's Day.
So they're teaching us women how to code and empowering us to be great using what we can, our fingers.
I'm from Project Codex. We learn all the skills that come into software development.
We learned different languages, which are the coding languages.
So we basically just got them to build interactive Valentine's cards with LEDs and conductive tape.
I mean, even though it's extremely difficult, we just love it. I feel like we can really change the world if we put our heads into the right direction.
It teaches you computational thinking, algorithmical thinking, and it teaches you to become a software developer.
I got to learn how to wrangle data and use this data to create stories to solve problems that are currently happening in the world. Through coding we can do this, and I find it extremely fun.
There should be a sort of synergy between people, not women or men, and by building things together, everyone in tech, kids, old people, learners.
I think the role of women in tech is to empower young other women to join the industry.
So
It's about
a
solving
big thing that we
problems,
found,
thinking
like with the
creatively, and
females,
doing other
is
amazing
that they,
crazy stuff that can change
it was
our
interesting,
world.
like
Tonight, I saw
chatting
how
to you
many
guys earlier,
actual
because you
women
also
there are
saying
in tech, and that was just
technology
amazing.
is mainly
Max,
in English, like
her
some of the
talk
words
was
are changed.
super
But
inspiring.
this is a big
I
thing
just
as well.
loved it
These
so
girls,
much.
their
I wanna
first
be an
language is generally
entrepreneur,
like Xhosa or
and
Zulu.
tonight I'm gonna
And
start, like she
people
said.
go in and start teaching them how to code
NRD.
in English, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about because you're speaking a language that's not even my own language. So they've started doing coding courses in their language and then translating it, and because they'll say basically like, oh, they've learned how to code in their mother tongue, and then they'll say, but this is what it's called in English. So when you're using a function or like an object, they at least understand what it is, so that when they go into the business world, they can actually chat to people. So there are huge things like that we're trying to like overcome with this like gender gap. And also a big thing is the girls feel, when you chat to them, the girls that are at university end up dropping out because they say what happens is the guys in their class are like, what are you doing here? You're just going to end up cooking me food one day. And then their parents are very much like, what are you doing here? You're just going to end up working at a shop or clean someone's house. So there's a very unsupportive attitude. So it's great for them to have our group because they essentially can talk to us and say, like, I've got an A, I'm doing really well, and you've got people actually supporting them versus someone going like, why are you wasting your time even doing that? So it's quite sad, but it's nice that we're trying to build this ecosystem up to support them. Does anyone have questions? Or do you want to take a break or anything? I've got lots of slides and I can like totally stop. So, yes.
And when you do at KATO, do you have to lend a computer to people, or do most of them bring their own computer?
So, excuse me, we partner with initiatives where they actually get people's old computers and then wipe them off. So they'll bring their computers with them so that people can use them, because that is a thing. So the other thing is also when people do pitches, we tell them like you don't have to have like a working app or a working anything, because perhaps their group is very much like a bunch of more like project managers or problem solvers. They will like just put it on slides or on paper so people can understand, because that's something we deal with. Not everyone has a computer. A lot of people don't even know how a computer works. So, yeah. Any other questions? No? So this is why do we do what we do? And because it's awesome. So there's this great thing. Everyone is talking about like the fourth industrial revolution, which is where everything's connected with the whole IoT thing. But there is the other fourth industrial revolution, which is like the maker community, where everything essentially is being made in your garage. So you don't have to outsource your skills. You can essentially watch something on Instructables or YouTube and then build it yourself. So you can now solve your own problems and essentially build your own product. Oh, so this is the Arduino, which I was talking about earlier, and I said you'd see one. That's the Arduino. These are Raspberry Pis. And there's another Arduino. And then that's the Intel Galileo. Yeah, so I was explaining this earlier. The 3 are microprocessors, and the other 2 are microcontrollers. So the one just means it's a standalone, and it's like a computer. Yeah. So essentially, like going back to this, that you can now like have your own manufacturing plant in your garage, is that from this, you've got a little computer, but you can attach different sensors to it and create all sorts of robots. So take this boy, for example. I think he's about 21 now. When he was 13 years old, I wonder if I have the video here. Is that the video? Oh, okay, it's a link, sorry. So when he was 13 years old, he met a girl who had a prosthetic limb, and he was chatting to her and was like, well, how much does that cost? And it's just that the normal like plastic ones, the ones that everyone's used to seeing. He's like, I just don't understand, like you pay that much for something that like can't really do anything. So he went home and he started playing with different microcontrollers, so like these, and he built an arm that when he moved it with his hand, it was like meters in front of him and it started moving. And so that was when he was 13. It's grown and grown and grown. He now does projects for NASA, and he has his own robotic company. But he basically got all this stuff online by understanding like, how's this working, how is that doing that? And there are people now reproducing his stuff in Africa. This wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the internet, for YouTube, for all these little devices, and the fact that everything's a lot more cost effective and cheaper for us to buy and actually develop things. So that's a nice example. And then we've got all these, the desktop machinery that never used to be for the desktop. So like 3D printers were only for huge manufacturing plants. Now we're very lucky we've got those, that we can have them on our desktop, as well as laser cutters, CNC machines, which means you can actually build your own prototype. And then the progression with all these things like 3D printers and what they're starting to actually develop, like different organs and medication. It's very exciting. So this is some 3D printed clothes. This is from quite a few years ago, but I actually saw these clothes. It was like at a fashion show, and they moved like material like this. So it's not like stiff. So it's very cool to see like printing your own clothes at home. And then because of the internet, everyone's extremely connected and we're global, which means you've got a global community. So when you're trying to solve a problem, no matter what it is, if you're just like, hey guys, I don't know how to make hot chocolate, you can write to people from the other end of the world and they'll tell you how to do it. It means collaboration on all different levels and then using people for their skills. It also means that when you want to do crowdfunding, it's a lot easier. And then Kickstarter isn't just the fact that you're getting money from people, but it's essentially you putting your products out there. And if people are interested in enough, they invest in it, which means you know it's going to work in the market because people have enough interest. And then there's the rise of the factory for hire. So you can actually down the road, because manufacturing is becoming so much cheaper, when you want to mass produce something, it's really easy, especially with Shenzhen. So there we go. Because everything's so much easier, can be produced a lot easier. You no longer have to be printing out millions of copies of something, or actually paying an arm and a leg for it. Like everyone's can afford to, well not everyone, but the majority of people can afford to get different things made in China, sent to them, and then actually test it, which is very great. Yeah, so this is the guy that started the whole maker movement. And basically he's also just saying like this is a great new concept that's coming up where people are essentially building their own things. So we do a lot of education in STEM, which I mentioned before. It's very cool. This was an IoT workshop that we ran for 10 months. But it basically means people, once they're educated in these different things, they can create their own solutions. So this is a generator powered by urine. So this wasn't our project. This I took off the internet because I just thought it was such a nice example, because electricity is a big problem for us in South Africa as well. So when you have some school kids coming up with a great solution, it's extremely inspiring. It also means that once these skills are taught, a lot of people in Africa that are, like the education across Africa is extremely poor compared to like first world countries, so like Europe and America. So it's really great when you give people these skills that actually empower them and give them the ability to create solutions and create companies and not rely on huge companies coming across to solve their problems. So this is like why we're so focused on Africa, besides the fact that it's my home and everyone that I work with, it's also where they've come from. Well, not everyone, but the majority of people. It's that it's the second most populated continent in the world. It's also, the average age is 19, which makes it the youngest continent in the world. So the consumers that are coming up next are going to be mainly from Africa. It's a great testing ground as well, because there are so many issues, there are so many people that can test things, there aren't so many laws in place for you to actually have to follow to test a product, which is great. There's so many cultures. As I mentioned, South Africa alone has 11 different cultures, 11 different languages. So I don't even know what the rest of Africa is, how many there are, but you can just imagine like coming from that. They have real life issues. So where an issue here might be like, I've taken a selfie and I want to give my friend a copy right now, like a printed copy, that's not a proper issue for them. Proper issues are the lack of food, the lack of water, the lack of electricity, the lack of like education and access to knowledge, which a big thing is like Wi-Fi. Everyone's trying to get Wi-Fi everywhere, which I don't necessarily think is the best idea, but yeah. And then we've got the best natural resources in the world. Cape Town alone, its flora and fauna is more than you have in the whole of Europe. So you can imagine, like, Africa is so vast, but people just keep taking the natural resources out. So, for example, China mines, like all the minerals, they take it across to China, they build hardware with it, and then we have to import it back for like maybe 100 times the price. So it's really, really sad, but it's just, Africa's so rich in so much knowledge, its resources, and it's probably a great continent to invest in. So the future, so right now we've just set up an office in Portugal. So we set up an office in Europe so that we can start getting global partners. So it's not just us working in South Africa and partnering with people across Africa. We're trying to collect the data about females, which I mentioned, and then continue educating people, continue empowering them, and then connect with communities around the world. So essentially we can say, like, what's going on your side? Like, this is what we're up to. Can we send someone to you? Or if someone's traveling, it's really great to know that there are other communities out there that have the same standards and the same ambition that we do. And then to continue to create solutions, which creating startups essentially and empowering people. So yeah, this whole invent your future. And again, it's that whole KATO cycle that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, and I think it's one more video. I don't know what it's on. It's not going to work. It's okay, we can skip it. So this is if you want to follow anything that we do. We're on Facebook as well. So, and all our groups run off there. So if you go into KATO Technology on the Facebook page, you can see from there, and also on all other channels. So thank you.